Nothing. At the end of the day, Hannah, nothing will ever, ever damage us, tarnish us, or hurt us because we are eternal beings.
Courtney Dawson, I'm so excited and so happy to have you on the show. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here, and welcome to my podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's really an honor to be able to share this space with you this morning.
I am so excited about the topics that we're gonna dive in because you are working as a medium. Yes. And I know there's so many myths out there about what a medium actually does. And yeah, would you just help us to demystify that and tell us, like, what exactly is mediumship?
Yeah, so mediumship is a ability that a lot of people are born with. A lot of people can develop, and the sole purpose of mediumship is to bring proof of survival. So in other words, the medium is going to expand their awareness to connect with those loved ones, including pets on the other side, and to connect with them to bring through pieces of evidence that defy logic, that validate that the soul continues to exist beyond bodily death. And a lot of people think, especially when I was early on in my development, I would get a lot of people asking, what are you doing? What are you dabbling in? That's so scary. You have no idea what you're doing. And I said, well, I've always had these natural abilities. I just want to be able to understand them. And through development, I was able to do that. And a lot of people think that mediumship, you're summoning the dead, and that we're waking the dead, we're disturbing the dead. And I want to debunk that because we're not. Our soul is the part of us that is timeless, ageless, and deathless. And it's that part of us that continues to exist beyond bodily death. And so when we think of people who have died, we are still thinking about them in a physical form. But we need to broaden that understanding and recognize that the physical body is just the house. It's just the vehicle. And it is that vehicle that dies, not the soul. And so whether someone is, their remains have been buried or cremated, that is not actually the person we're connecting with, or that aspect of the person we're connecting with. We're connecting with the soul that is an energy. And Hannah, one of my favorite quotes from Albert Einstein is, matter cannot be destroyed. It only, it only changes form. And so if we look at bodily death as that, if we look at connecting with the souls of our loved ones as that can help us understand that death isn't an ending, but merely a continuation on into the higher side of life. And I have had, especially with some of my early upbringing, being in a Christian church, my parents being elders, there was a lot of misunderstanding that came from dogma, doctrine, and creed from the Christian church that I was raised in. And so the church, with a lot of its teachings, can certainly help people, but there is a lot of misinterpretation, a lack of understanding on what mediumship is actually about. And that was one of the struggles that I actually had while I was growing up, Hannah, particularly when I actually went to a private Christian school too. So I was heavily influenced by the Christian church. And there were scriptures in the Bible that said, it's your loved ones aren't actually connecting with you in spirit. It's actually familiar spirits who have negative intentions. And so it was all fear-based. And I think that's why many people like myself sometimes avoid developing their mediumistic abilities or take longer to develop those abilities because there's so much fear that has been instilled from a young age. And that information, that doctrine has been handed down for like a few thousand years. But what's really cool now about 2023 is that mediumship has become more mainstream, especially with podcasts, television. YouTube, social media. And so we're starting to normalize the conversations regarding mediumship and looking at it from a different perspective. And everybody's got their own style on how they work mediumistically. I work evidentially, but at its core, mediumship, connecting with souls in the world unseen, is all about healing. It's all about bringing healing to those that are still here in the physical, so comforting the bereaved. But it's also giving our loved ones in spirit an opportunity to say their final goodbyes if they weren't able to before their departure. It is also letting their loved ones know, hey, I know that you're grieving. My body isn't what died. I'm still here. I still know what you're doing. Hey, you were at this place doing this at this time, and this sign, whatever that may be, maybe a cloud formation, a song on the radio, could be a flower that they saw that was the flower that would have been used to represent their soul at their, celebration of life, etc. There's all these different signs. And then that helps comfort the bereaved. And mediumship also, beyond comforting the bereaved, which is such a huge part of it, is also to inspire the living. Because there is so much fear that we experience in life. And if we take a look at the pandemic we had, so much fear that people began to have fights with one another. There was a lot of differences of opinion. It was all division. And there was a lot of death that happened as well. But if we recognize that death is an illusion, and that, yes, there may be physical separation, but the souls will always be intertwined, it can help us in our living here, those that are still here in the physical. It can help us understand that nothing, at the end of the day, Hannah, nothing will ever damage us, tarnish us, or hurt us, because we are eternal beings.
That's so beautiful. And what I was thinking, the second when you said nothing can, what I was thinking is that actually also nothing can separate us in the end. Because even if we feel, or almost like when we're alive and separated through our physical bodies, that's when we're the most separated. And afterwards, we're actually even more connected. And that I just thought is so beautiful to think of, to see it like this. And this is a reframing that really takes away all fear.
Absolutely. And mediumship, I was always taught when I started in development, sitting in a circle, is that mediumship is all about healing. And to be honest, it took me quite a while to really wrap my head around that. And, as I work more with the spirit world, as I teach, as I continue to grow and evolve as a physical being, as a spiritual being, as a medium, as a mentor, I really understand that the healing is multifaceted, and that once you think you've healed in a certain area, the spirit world will ignite another little facet of your healing. And really, I find with mediumship is it's return to self. It's a discovery of self, remembering who we are as these soul beings having a human experience. And I found that from my own experience, and also when I'm mentoring students, that once they open their awareness to these mediumistic powers of awareness, these potentials that each and every one of us have, some may have it a little bit stronger than others, but we all at some level and to some degree have the ability to connect with the spirit world. There is a realization that we're much more than this physical body, and we start to look at life through a different lens. We start to look at life as a miracle, as this magical experience that we get to partake in every single day. We get front row seats. And I don't know about you, but that gives me like little angel bumps. I love it. And for example, as I'm talking to you outside my office window, I have the sun shining. I have two beautiful hanging baskets. I can see the sun shining on it. And I look at it and I am just in awe of how nature has been able to create not only the sun, but the colors that each of those flowers have and their variations, and how with a bit of water and sun, that those plants know exactly what to do without any workshops, without any classes, without a mentor. They innately know what they need to do and what the process of life means for them. But really, we're no different than plants, because each of us have a life force energy within us. And if we can take the time through development, through sitting in a circle, through whether you want to develop mediumship or not, if you create a practice, whether that be mindfulness, meditation, breath work, journaling, yoga, tai chi, whatever it is that resonates for you, you're going to connect with that life force energy, and it ignites passion. It helps you in every facet of your life. But in order for you to experience it, you have to show up and commit to doing the work. And what a lot of my students experience, Hannah, just like myself, is that mediumship is much more than just making a link with the spirit world, having a contact and bringing through messages. That is one aspect of it. There's the spiritualization of self, which is our inner healing, our shadow work, healing our crap. And I don't care who you are, how popular you are, what you've been doing, and for how long. We all have a story. We all have aspects of ourselves that need to be healed. And that is a huge part of our development. And through that inner healing and that shadow work, that will enhance our own mediumistic abilities. And when I struggle on my mediumship, because we all have moments where we're not on our game, I can take a moment and reflect through my practice and go, okay, maybe I haven't been sitting in the power enough. Or maybe I got some personal stuff going on and I haven't healed that or resolved it or just spent time on dealing with it. Maybe I'm hanging on to something that really, it's long overdue to let go. And when I can do that, then I see how that benefits my mediumship.
It's almost like you kind of, I see it like towards the light, and then kind of like everything that we push under, and like we gotta, in our basement, like we have to sort things in our basement to actually like go up and to see the sun that's on. Otherwise, everything carries us down all the time. So
absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And just because we have this ability to connect with the spirit world does not mean we are exempt from life experiences, from having trauma, from experiencing pain and hardships. That's all part of our physical existence. The earth is our classroom. And the whole reason why we come to the earth is to have those experiences. And they're not easy. They're difficult. They challenge us. But it's through those experiences that we remember who we really are and why we came here.
Absolutely. That was actually, I think, if I think about it, what spirituality really, like what benefits I'm drawing from it. Like one of the biggest ones is I think that to understand that we are souls and we're coming from light, and only if we experience shadow, we can see light and we can understand what light is, and that we need those contracts and we need to learn what, I don't know, being lovesick is, or what it means to have like a broken heart, what it means to lose a like loved one, or all these experiences that we as a soul, we are just craving to experience all facets of life. And yes, of course, as humans, we always only want to have everything pleasant feeling. Like we only want the ice cream. But sometimes we do need the broccoli and all the other things as well to also to understand and to really appreciate those moments, those ice cream moments, because let's be honest, if we had it all the time, we would not appreciate it anymore. And to understand that, or to see life with that lens and that concept, because basically it's a choice. We all don't really know 100% guaranteed. Is this truth? Is this truth? Whatever. We all have our different truths. But to make this choice to see life and the world and our human experience through that lens gave me so much more depth and so much more healing in the moments that felt very unpleasant.
Definitely. That totally resonates with what you said. Okay, so I'm going to be completely honest here.
Yes,
there's a lot that we are exposed to, particularly with social media and with respect to spirituality. And I'm not sure why. Actually, I am. It's all ego. So we can just call it out what it is. It's ego. But if we look at social media, we look at TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube Shorts, whatever. There are a lot of people who are in the spiritual community, which is so expansive, so wide ranged with different modalities and belief systems and practices, etc., which is great, which I think is incredible because there's not a one size fits all for spirituality. And that's something that's always resonated with me from a young age. But there is a lot of sugarcoating spirituality. If you get the crystals, if you have the tarot cards, if you do this practice, if you connect with this group, then you're enlightened. You have moved up one ring on the ladder. And let's cut the nonsense. Let's cut the crap. Spirituality is about remembering who we are, and it's about living life in our fullness. And what does fullness mean? For me, it means embracing the spiritual in our humanness and allowing those two aspects to coexist at the same time. Because being here in the physical isn't just an experience for the physical body. It is an experience for the soul. But in order for the soul to experience it, it has to have the vessel, the hard shell, the meat suit, whatever you want to call it, right? And I feel sometimes there's almost like a glamorizing of spirituality and a false narrative that's created through media. And I've seen it so many times, especially with students and even people that come to me for a private one-to-one session, Hannah. And there can be a lot of damage that is done because of that. Mental, emotional, energetic. And I don't like how people make spirituality so complicated. You've got to have the bracelets. You've got to have the clothing. You got to listen to the certain music. You got to do these certain practices. Well, what works for Courtney may not work for Hannah. So that's cool. But I mean, who am I to say you should or shouldn't be doing these things? I encounter a lot of people who have different practices than me. And I'm not going to say I wasn't one of those persons that, had the big crystal collection and had all the oracle cards, which I still have a lot of oracle cards. I don't use them very much anymore. To be honest, personally, I don't. But I did all of that. And honestly, it was so exhausting. It was so exhausting. And everything that I was doing became so convoluted. I was like, what the hell am I doing? This is actually causing me more grief than it is peace. And I've learned through my spiritual practice, if I don't have peace, Hannah, then that's a clear sign that I'm out of alignment with my soul. And I need to stop the train. I need to pause, connect with my soul, connect with my guides and go, hey, I need some help. Where did I go astray? Where did I take the wrong turn? And it's through the practice that we can have that awareness where we recognize something's off, something's not working here, but then I can quickly pivot back to where I need to be. And there's just so much that I find in the spiritual community that honestly, I don't find it helpful. And so even with my own practice, I don't claim to have all the answers. My belief is based on my experiences up to this point in my life. But I'm totally open to the possibilities and actually welcome them, Hannah, to learn more, to grow. And as a mentor, as a teacher, I see my students learning and growing. And through their growth, I learn so much. And I'll never be at a place in my journey, and I sure hope not, that I'm going to know everything. Because what would the point be of actually having this human experience if I knew everything? There's no point. What a waste of time. I'd rather hang out in the spirit world doing some other cool stuff, right?
I agree with you so much in so many ways, starting with kind of the social media world and what it portrays about spirituality. I believe I experienced exactly the same, where I had, like, once I got more into all these practices, it was almost like I founded a business 4 years ago-ish or something. So I had a lot on my agenda, just, running a startup and so on. And then on top of all these to-dos, I had my daily journaling, my daily yoga, my daily meditation. I wanted to walk for every day and so on. My gratitude list, da-da-da. And I started to be like so stressed by all the million to-dos, and it started to not be what it was supposed to be, make me feel light, joyful, and just be a beautiful experience. And I started to become way more intuitive with those things. And I'm like journaling now when I feel like I need to express myself and stuff like this. And I believe what it is where the focus is. So is the focus on the outside world, what others do? Then I also believe that I gotta do what XYZ does, or am I actually truly listening what inside I know what's right now at that moment the right thing for me? And that can be in a year from now a totally different thing, because we all evolve. Just like nature does, where like if I compare myself now from who I was a year ago, it's like almost like a different person, because so many things inside of me changed, or what I believed and so on. So naturally those practices evolve. So if we compare ourselves to others and when we try to adopt those practices, those habits, naturally they don't fit, because we are different. And then on top, we need different things on different times. Like just starting as females, that we have a cycle where we need within that cycle different things. And I believe we actually have all the answers, but we need to look within. And what spirituality did for me, and what I believe also like a good mentor does, what a good coach does, is to help us. They never give us the answer, but they help us to listen, to tune in to ourselves, and to find our truths, our answers, and that what we feel like what is our next step. And I love that you pointed these things out. And I also love that you said that we have this human body, we have this human experience in all of its facets. Because I remember as well, I think I suffered 2 years ago from a severe depression, and I looked at social media, and I'm mostly following really just like people from the personal development and the spiritual realm, and I felt everybody else is happy, and everybody else like only does practices that are bringing joy and so on. And I did not understand. I went so deep in my personal development practice, and I didn't understand why am I experiencing these negative, or like why I'm experiencing this right now, but everybody else is not. Until I started to understand that actually I was suppressing sadness. I had so much sadness inside of me that I never gave the room to it, because I felt it's wrong, if you're spiritual, you must be light all the time and so on. And it was truly once I allowed myself to feel anger, sadness, impatient, whatever emotions there were, to let these go through me, and then they leave the body actually after 90 seconds. This is where it changed, and this is where I felt I really started to get into my own power. And thank you so much for sharing this, because I believe there's so many people who feel like I did 2 years ago, and like you said, and that we need to change this narrative, because spirituality in the end is just something that is supposed to make us feel more empowered, more stronger and more connected. And so thank you so much for sharing that.
Well, thank you for sharing your experience. You make a really good point too, is, just kind of finishing up on the social media thing, is we can look at all of these people we follow, and it's all shiny and glossy on the outside, but there's not every person who is posting on there is letting others know, and they're being transparent in it. Okay, so I might be a healer, an intuitive, a coach, a medium, but I and this is how you can do this practice and this practice. But I do see some people, and I do follow some, but not everybody is saying, hey, guess what? I might be this coach, this intuitive, this medium, this mentor, but I went through this loss, whether that be a death of a loved one, whether that be an ending of a career, ending of a marriage, financial hardship. And this is how my practice supported me as I went through this human experience. Because we all go through times, we're not exempt from difficulty, mental health issues. For my whole life, I have dealt with anxiety. And up until my early 30s, when I started formally training as a medium, it wasn't then until that point that I actually understood where the anxiety was coming from. And so now when I have any anxiety come up, I quickly tune in. And there's usually a spiritual reason for it. And that completely changed my healing. And I recognize that the anxiety, my responses could be different than somebody else's. But for me, it's usually not when there is a personal issue going on anymore. There might be some feelings of overwhelm, but the actual physical symptoms of anxiety is often when there's an energy coming close, and that's just how my body responds to it. But through my spiritual practice, it's helped me recognize that. So now I go, oh, okay, someone's here, no problem. And then I'm okay. But I have gone through difficult times, through divorce, a loss of a child, parents divorcing, financial struggles. Those are all things that, I have gone through. And they're hella difficult, especially at the end of my divorce, like where my whole life was ground zero and I had to build my life back up. If it wasn't for some good family members and some good friends and my spirit guides, my angels, I don't know how I would have gotten through it. I'm sure I would have, but maybe with not as much ease and grace.
Yeah, you still wanted to say something? Keep
going.
No,
that's okay. Yeah, I don't know how I would have done that, to be honest. And that was even before I started developing my mediumship. I always had an awareness of the spirit world. I always knew things, very, very psychic from a young age. But I don't know how I would have gotten through that. And I'm so grateful for that. But yet, just because I had an awareness of the spirit, awareness of angels, did not give me a go pass on those experiences. And I've had a lot of health issues over my life. I still had to go through them. I still had to go through the feelings of being overwhelmed. And, particularly when I went through my divorce too, I went through some depression. It sucked. When I had the loss of a child, I went through heavy depression and questioning life and what life was all about. And why did this happen to me? Why did this happen to her? I've been through all of that. And people go, well, you're a medium. It's different. I'm going to correct you right there. It's not. First and foremost, I'm a human. Second, I'm a medium.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing. And I'm so sorry for your loss. And
it's okay. It's part of life's experiences. And I can see that now. I understand that now, right? And, I wouldn't change a thing. Truly, I wouldn't, because I can see how this divine plan has unfolded. And so I always say, thy will be done.
And to close the circle, like what we talked about earlier, that we're actually never separated. And that's like the beauty, like maybe in a physical form, but as souls, we're always connected and we always are with each other. And what I wanted to ask before, when we both wanted to talk at the same time, was I wanted to dive deeper into that topic. And how did your spiritual, I would not even say your spiritual practices itself, but having faith in angels, in spirit guides, feeling the connection to them, how exactly did it help you and what did it do for you? Because I'm sure there's so many people out there right now going through a challenging time. And like, how can they maybe also develop more of their, I wouldn't even say mediumship, like maybe yes, maybe that's along the line, but just if they're right now going through a very struggling hard time, how can they develop the faith into or the connection in something higher in them that helps them through those challenging times?
Each of us are going to have those difficult times, those struggles, those moments in life where we feel like you want to give up. But then there's something within us that urges us to keep moving forward. That is our soul. Again, that's the part of us that is timeless, ageless, and deathless. That's the part of us that is speaking to us and saying, hey, I'm here. I'm inspiring you to let you know you're going to get through this. And so I always think of our intuition as the voice of our soul. That is like our GPS system, helping us navigate what direction, what the next step is to take. But through connecting with our intuition, we also have these beautiful soul beings, guides, angels, ascended masters, loved ones, who in the spirit world are always there to support us. Not everybody has an awareness of these beautiful beings, and how you can connect with them, whether you're a newbie, fresh onto the spiritual train, or you're well established, is creating a sacred space where you can allow yourself to move into the stillness, where you can become aware of their presence. And so my recommendation or suggestion would be, even if you could take 5 or 10 minutes, 10 minutes would be great, but if you can just do 5 minutes, amazing. Go somewhere quiet. Now, if the only quiet place you have is your car, you can do that too. Or out on your backyard, your patio, your garage. I mean, especially when my kids were growing up, my place of spiritual practice was always my bathtub. They knew when mom was having a bath, we didn't bug her. And I'd always bring a journal with me and I would just start channeling, but didn't recognize where the channeling was coming from. So what you can do is find that quiet space. Make sure that your cell phone is on Do Not Disturb, or just don't even bring it with you. And then the first thing what we want to do is bring us to a place of calm and centeredness. And we can do that simply just by focusing on the breath and following the breath as it moves in and out. For myself, I have ADD, so my mind it's like a squirrel that likes to wander. And I like to say to myself, as I'm breathing in, I go breathe in. And when I breathe out, I'm breathing out. And I do that for, a few rounds of breathing, just to allow myself to get settled into this space of stillness. And then what I do is I invite my soul to step forward. And I imagine like a beautiful petunia flower, or if you will, like a rose or a tulip, whatever works for you. And imagine that flower just coming up through the center of your chest, and slowly each petal begins to pull back and that flower goes into full bloom. In the center of that flower is a beautiful white light. And that is our soul. That is our connection to source energy. That is our connection to the divine. And when you connect to your heart space, feel into that sacred space of unconditional love. Think of a moment where you have experienced unconditional love, because the divine is exactly that, unconditional love. And that's why people, once you've made that connection with the divine, they have a very hard time turning their back from it, because with that unconditional love, we know that we are accepted. We're not judged. We have an awareness, a knowing that we're perfect exactly the way we are, regardless of our faults, our bad habits, all of that. That's okay. We are a work in progress, and the divine accepts us just the way we are. And so what I like people to try is, once you move into that space of feeling unconditional love, send a thought out. Doesn't matter to who. You could just say spirit guides or angels. You don't need to know what they look like. You don't need to know their name, all of that. I invite you to share this space with me. Gather close. May I feel your presence. And just allow yourself to become aware of the very subtle changes within your field of power, within your atmosphere. And just make a note of it. And then just allow yourself to sit in that presence of their energy and the energy of unconditional love. And allow yourself just to be in that space and observe and make a note of every physical sensation, every thought, every emotion. And that is a way that you can open the door to establishing, developing, and maintaining a connection with the divine. And as you spend more time with them, you'll get very more familiar with the different energies that come into your awareness, that come into your field of power. And I always recommend people journal their experiences, whether it makes sense or not, doesn't matter, in time it will, but also date that journal, because when you go back and look at those writings, you're going to go, holy smokes, look how far I've come. Look what revelations I have experienced that have been shared with me. Look at all the support that I've been having through this life, through the good, the bad, and the ugly. And most importantly, I'm never alone. Somebody's always got my back. And a lot of people get hung up with the archetypes of spirit guides and who they are, where they came from. For me, I don't know all of my spirit guides. I recognize their energy. There's like a familiarity, but I don't get hung up on the names. And one of my dear, dear guides who works with me, John, I'm actually not sure if that's his real name, because I had said to him, we were working together, like, maybe can you throw in a name there? Can I call you something? And he says, well, you can call me John if you want. And I said, oh, okay. Interesting. So that's what I call him. Wait, is that his real name? Probably not. Because it didn't matter to him, but he recognized that my human mind wanted to have something that I could reference. Just like my name's Courtney, your name's Hannah, right? I wanted that. And he said, yeah, sure, no problem. Then I've got other guides. They don't give me none of that. But yet they show up in different ways. So over time, anybody can develop these very strong connections with the divine. And it is a game changer. You can go from a place of feeling isolated, lonely, depressed, fearful, to a place of supported, acknowledged, validated, loved, confident. Because our guides don't know everything, but they can see a little bit further down the path. They get a little bit more of like a bird's eye view of a situation. And that's where their insight and guidance is so helpful to us. It's like we're getting insider news or insider tips, right? And a lot of the signs that they give us is going to be through our feelings. This is why it's so important for people to embrace their feelings. All of them, the comfortable ones, the uncomfortable, because mediumship in and of itself is the language of feeling. But connecting with your guides, your loved ones, you don't even have to call it mediumship, even though it is. Just having that connection with the divine. They will speak to you through your feelings. Start there.
Thank you so much for sharing. And when you said this little prayer, I swear I felt like just so protected and such a protecting energy through me. That was so beautiful. So thank you so much. What I would like to talk about is that you're working with evidential, like on an evidential basis. Would you walk us more through how you're working with a client and what is the difference between like working on evidential, like on true evidence versus there's kind of like the education or like entertainment mediumship? Like what are the differences between that, and where can we see what is just to make us smile, laugh, whatever, or what can we truly take as guidance?
So evidential mediumship, a medium is going to work with the spirit world to bring through pieces of information that defy logic, information that cannot be found through social media, through Google. And what a medium does, so for example, if I'm going to be doing a private sitting with somebody, I'm going to explain the process to them. I'm going to let them know that most times a mediumship link will work. Sometimes it won't. And it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the medium, the sitter, or the spirit communicator. It just means for whatever reason, the energies aren't working. And we usually know that within a good about 5 minutes or so. It's like, it's just not working, and that's okay, right? But through that process, we as mediums are going to tune into the atmosphere around our client because their loved ones are actually with them. They're not with us. Our spirit guides are with us, but their loved ones, whether we're doing a reading on Zoom or in person, their loved ones are always with them. And as we tune into that atmosphere around our client, we're going to begin to feel and sense the different energies. And as we tune into them, we start to allow their energy and ours to blend. And through that blending, the information will come through feeling or hearing or seeing. And then we're going to describe those experiences to our sitter. And they're going to let us know if that makes sense or if it doesn't. And when I personally do a reading, I only let clients give me responses of yes, no, I don't know. Because in some of the entertainment mediumship, you're going to hear, for example, there's mediums on TV. And they will say, who's the mother figure who had the heart attack? Who is the father figure who passed from Alzheimer's? Who's the lady who passed from breast cancer? Now, for example, if you were to say those comments to me, and if I went to you for a reading, I would go, you're going to have to give me more information. Because what happens is when we're giving one piece of information like that, who's the lady with the breast cancer, then what they're doing is they're having the recipient, meaning the person who's getting the message, fill in the blank. As an evidential medium, it is our job to fill in the blank. So in other words, if I were giving an evidential contact, I would say, I'm very much aware of your grandmother on your mom's side of the family who would have passed to the spirit world with breast cancer at the age of 62. She would have left behind 3 children. Would you understand this? See how it's a little bit different? Absolutely. You're giving the information. You're not asking the recipient to fill in the blank. And I see a lot of that. And some of them, the entertainment mediumship, it is exactly that. It's entertainment. It's a little bit of showboating. And I mean, that's not to say like in my readings, there's not laughter, there's not jokes or comments that the spirit communicator's bringing through. Because again, it's their personality. I'm just passing on the messages. But I am wanting to make sure that I am telling the spirit's story the way they want it. And that is something that I've had to work on and I still work on in my mediumship. Because when we're not healing our stuff, our inner work, doing the work, it creates a filter that the spirit communicator's information has to filter through, which can change the context of the information they're trying to share. But all of the evidence that comes through is to bring through proof of survival, such as names, dates, birth dates, blood types, addresses. Now, I would love to get more names and more addresses. I will. A lot of the information that comes through in my contacts is there's going to be a lot of personality. There's going to be causes of passing that I'm going to share. There's going to be relationships, relationship dynamics. The spirit communicator may bring through specific information regarding the last part of the life prior to their departure. They may share hobbies and interests that they had. They may talk about personal qualities that they wish that they would have worked on in their personal life while they're still here in the physical. All of that is to help create the image of that spirit communicator to their loved one in spirit so that they know without a shadow of a doubt, in fact, it is their loved one communicating. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then entertainment, there's a lot of stuff on TV that I just kind of cringe because it's not what mediumship is about. I do like a lot of the stuff on TV for the purposes of it's normalizing our conversations about mediumship and the afterlife. So of course there's a benefit and there's a plus to it. But we got to remember there's also a big component to mediumship, and that's our ethics and responsibility. And when I'm teaching my students their foundational training and theory, that is one of the things that I will emphasize in the beginning, in the middle, and in the advancement of their training. Because when you see a medium on television going up to a random person in a gas station, a grocery store, oh, I've got your mother here. Oh, I have your child here. To me, that is just cringy, because that person is just trying to go on with their day. We don't know what mental, emotional state they're in. We don't even know if they even want a message. And then they've got some random person coming up and saying they've got their dead loved one there. How devastating and traumatizing could that potentially be? And I personally know some mediums that work in the television industry and know that there's actually consent forms that are signed before they go up to these quote unquote random people and start giving them these messages. So again, it's giving a false narrative of what mediumship's all about. And I would not go up to some random person and give them a message. As mediums, we should never ever read for somebody unless we have their permission. So for example, Hannah, if you came to me for a reading, I've got your consent, right? But if for any reason there's a communicator that comes through and you're like, I just don't want to hear from them, I'm going to respect that. Because a mediumship reading, a contact with the spirit world, should always be comforting, loving, and we should always leave you in a better place than before you came to see me.
It's the same for coaching. It's, you could also kind of like coach whoever you're talking to, but it's kind of like also like an informal rule that you only coach somebody who gave you the duty, I would quote unquote say so, to do so, or the permission, however you want to say it, but only if I'm being asked, and usually that's over some transaction, like in our world, it's mostly financial, but if it's not that, then I'm just holding a conversation, just like with everybody else, like a friend, and so on. Because, sometimes also people, they don't want to be coached at every moment. And the same is, sometimes we're maybe not open to receiving messages. So I find it very, very amazing of you that you respect those boundaries and those incidents where it's appropriate to, really channel those messages from our loved ones and where it's just not. So thank you very much also for sharing and for making the difference, so we all understand, okay, where are we just supposed to be entertained? And it's still amazing that we are all, that mainstream television already is taking on topics like this. That is a sign of how much people want that in their life. But then also to differentiate, okay, this is still just for entertaining purposes, and this is not, just like in a Hollywood movie, this is also not exactly the same in reality. It's just giving an idea. So thank you so much for sharing this.
Thank you for allowing me to even share that, because some people don't talk about it. And I think it's important that we let people decide based on knowledge. So people can decide however they want to have a reading with their loved one. But if you're coming to me, it's going to be to bring through evidence that without a shadow of a doubt, it is your loved one connecting with you.
I love that. I love that. As my last question before, however we can work with you, I would like to know, what was the kind of most breathtaking, goosebumps getting reading or moment or session that you had with a client?
There's been a lot. So I'm going to think about one of my more recent ones. So I did a reading for a mother and daughter. And to be honest, I didn't know they were a mother and daughter until the information from the spirit communicator started to unfold, because honestly, they didn't even look alike. But it turned out it was stepmother and daughter, right? So this is why we never assume, we never judge a book by its cover. And I clairaudibly heard a gentleman, and he stepped forward and he starts speaking. And then all of a sudden I started to feel him, and I started to describe his physicality, his personality. He brought through incredible evidence that kind of shocked me. And I wasn't like, high five Courtney. I always say, Spirit, I'm just so amazed at what you can bring through little old me. Because it's not about me. It's about those that are sitting in front of me, those in the other world. But he brought through information about birth dates, time of passing, specific details regarding his manner of passing. And then he had said, oh, I love these tamales. And I've never actually ate a tamale in my life, I'll be honest. But I knew what it was because I've watched a lot of cooking shows. It's one of Courtney's things. But all of a sudden I could taste it, and I described it. And both these ladies' faces dropped with their chins hanging. And then I seen a Mexican flag. And he started talking about his connection to being Mexican. His family was Mexican, etc. And the recipe of the tamales and all of these details regarding it. And literally their chins dropped. I go, uh-oh, did I say something wrong? They're like, no, we just made them yesterday. And I go, oh my gosh, okay. And they were making it in honor of him because he loved his tamales. But then I started to get more of his personality, where he was very organized and very particular with the cleaning of his house. And he started telling his wife a to-do list, things that still needed to be cleaned in the house. I thought, oh my God, here we go. And he said, and tell her she's got to stop stuffing this stuff underneath the bed. She's got to sort through it and clean it. Her face dropped. She's like, oh my God, because no one would ever know that. And he even mentioned specific things that she had stuffed underneath the bed just to kind of have it like out of sight, out of mind. And it was the specifics. I went, holy smokes. When I was done that reading, I just sat there and I just thanked Spirit, and I go, wow, this is why I do what I do, because sometimes you will bring through a contact that is so spot on. Once you move into the power, your mind, it shifts into a different state, and you're just literally letting that information channel. And then when it's done, you go, oh my gosh, wow. And it's not like a high five Courtney. It's, wow, Spirit. It's just one of those reaffirming moments why you actually do what you do. I mean, there's so many. I did a reading maybe about 8 years ago, and I had a lady when I was still doing readings in my office, and did a contact. She had no idea who these people were. And there was about half a dozen people that came through. Names, relationships, specific details. She's like, I have no idea. And then she crossed her arms, and I go, oh no, don't cross your arms. Usually when somebody does that, they're closing off their energy, right? Means like they're not digging it. Well, she ended up emailing me a few days later. She talked with her mom and her aunt because she got the recording of the reading. They knew every single person there. They could validate every single name and all of the evidence. So it was evidential. She just didn't know it. I prefer to actually bring through evidence at the time of the reading that people know, but sometimes there might be like secondary evidence, meaning it is evidential. They just don't know it. They got to check with the family member or friend. And I just go, wow, you guys. And that experience in and of itself, I was ready to like hang up the towel and go, oh my gosh, my mediumship is done. It's disappeared. No, it didn't. I just needed to lean in more and trust the spirit world more. And that's something I strive to do each and every day. It's not always easy. I mean, I trust them, but I think it's more of me allowing myself to surrender more, release more of the control, and just allow them to do what they need to do to bring that proof of survival.
Oh gosh, I love it. And I just hope you blew so many minds and opened up so many world views to what is beyond, beneath, around us is not only what we see, and that there's so much more in the world than what we can just experience with our five senses. And thank you so much. I could listen to you for hours and hours and hours. I understand why people watch that for education, for entertainment, really. I love your stories, and I love your knowledge, and I love your mission, because I believe we all need so much more of this in the world. So thank you so much for sharing it. Thank you so much for also clearing up what is kind of the social media world, what's the TV world, what's everything that is being portrayed to us on media, and then what is it to actually work with a medium, and what are the beautiful benefits that we can get from that. And if we would want to have those, how can we work with you? Where can we find you?
So you can head on over to my website at mediumcourtneydawson.com, or you can follow me on Instagram at mediumcourtneydawson.
I will link everything in the show notes. And to you, Courtney, a huge thank you for your time, for sharing everything with us. It was truly such a beautiful, delightful episode. And I just hoped you inspired so many people to be open to the 5D world, and to be open to their angel, their spirit guides, and to maybe even work with you, and to see what messages the other world, the other side of the world has for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Hannah, for having me.
Now, I would like to know from you, what was your biggest takeaway, and how can you put it into action starting now? Leave a comment below, or hop over to Instagram at HannahWiz_ and leave a comment under the post of today's episode. Thank you so much for watching, and never forget to shine your light.